For presenting yourselves on this battlefield. I give you thanks. This is our army. To join it, you give homage. I give homage to Scotland. And if this is your army, why does it go? We didn't come here to fight for them. Oh, the English are too many. Scotland. I am William Wallace. William Wallace is 7 feet tall. Yes, the man. Killed men by the hundreds. And if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. I am William Wallace. And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. Free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight that you may die. Run. And you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds, many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Give us the freedom.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope everyone is having a productive and a positive start to the day. If it's early morning where you are, if it's mid afternoon, and if it's nighttime where you are, I hope that you had a good day. This is King Sigma coming to you live with another live cast. Today, the conversation will be about Passport Gate. Shout out to my ISIS Colder. He's the one that actually termed that this whole dick policing versus the free thinking black man and the free moving black man. He's the one that actually gave this conversation the title hashtag Passport Gate. So I want to salute him. I titled this live cast an elegy on Passport Gate because if you know about the difference between a eulogy and an elegy is more of a mourning poem of grief. I believe that after listening to quite a few of the free moving brothers here in this digital space on what we call Black Male YouTube, they've done a great job of refuting and debunking all these different false narratives that are being spread by those that either truly believe those narratives or those that are seeking clout, attention, clickbaits or whatnot. So obviously the larger group is those that actually believe this type of stuff, and the small group is just it's more of an entertainment thing. So we'll be addressing the talking points because regardless of what the motive is and the agenda, the narrative is there. So it's actually kind of fun, disputing different narratives and making sure that there's a counter and that the public has the information that they need to know that, well, this one person said this, but here's the actual truth. So there's quite a few brothers that have responded. Some that I can name off the top of my head are here that'll be joining me on the panel for the next 2 hours. We have Mad Bus Driver, Mana Tomorrow, and Baba Tunde of slanevil.com. You can go check out slanevil.com to see how this whole thing started over the last month or so. If you check out his website, some of the other brothers in this space that I've heard from is Karagakari Jones, Red Pill Mary, Super Triz, Xanatos Clutch, Edward Anderson, The Straight Shooter, Rollo of the Rollo Show, Yes Yonaz, Organic Maze Runner, Philco, The Philco Show, One Master Teacher. Those are the ones I can name off the top of my head. So anyone else that's responding to this nonsense, salute to you. Hopefully we can just put a nail in the coffin on these talking points because this is really not my lane. I have a lot more of the things that I like to be talking about, but I do think that it's important that these dick policing and cock watching narratives be refuted because there are a lot of people watching this stuff. And I think that's what kind of gets lost in these conversations, that people forget that we're not sitting in the barbershop on the corner having a private conversation. These are public conversations, and people can take a lot of this stuff the wrong way and run with these narratives, and you just never know how it can spread. And next thing you know, you have a narrative that you might have thought it was all fun and games, but now you've attached your face and your name to something that's very regressive and destructive. So I don't want no parts of that. So I'm glad that we're doing this today. I actually been doing some intermittent fasting. For those that I've talked to before, since last December 2018, I had started on working on my body fat levels. I had started off at about 180 pounds. I got my body fat tested. I was at 20% body fat, and the goal was to get it down to 10%. So here we are about, I believe, it's been like 7 months or something like that. And, I'm doing the intermittent fasting about 2 or 3 times a week, and my body fat is down to about 13%. So I dropped from 180 pounds to 167 pounds. And my goal was to get down to, 157. So I figure I'll get there in about 2 months. So this is actually good to do this show early because I always struggle in that last hour when I do intermittent fasting, because I try to do my intermittent fasting on days that I work out. And today is the day that I go do 5 miles on a treadmill. So I try to, keep my meals very light. And I try to, when I do intermittent fasting, I do it 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. I go fasting during that period. So it's actually good to had something to distract me this morning. In the news, I was reading about how the yield curve has inverted for the second time in a major way over the month of August. And for you guys that are thinking about, your 401k, your E-Trade, and thinking about what kind of moves that you need to be making as far as like purchases and things like that, or saving, I would suggest that this be a good time for you to save. The thing about the yield curve inverting for the second time in August within 2 weeks, that's a pretty bad sign. And you can pretty much see it with the stock market this week. It's dropping, but it's been dropping for the last year. And usually when you get that kind of inversion, it's a sign that the investment banks and the mega investors are very pessimistic on the future. And so we know that with the American economy, so much of it depends on consumer confidence and investor confidence. And it always starts with the investors because they have the most information. So it's not looking good if you're on the depending on a job side, or if you happen to be a person in a lot of debt. My recommendation for you free thinking brothers and those that are moving around, this is the time to pay off all your debts that you can possibly pay off. Save as much as you can and cut your expenses as much as you can so that you can be in a position to actually buy during the recession when all the prices are low on all sorts of consumer goods that you may want, big ticket items, homes, condos, or whatever. That's going to be the time to make a move, is around Q2 2020. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, the topic today is an elegy on Passport Gate. I think that we got a big panel that we can put a nail in the coffin, but I first wanted to read a poem from Edgar Allan Poe, because when you do an elegy, you got to have a poem. And Edgar Allan Poe, he wrote a poem in 1946 called Spirits of the Dead. And I just thought that title and this poem is perfect for what we're really dealing with when we're talking about the cock watching segments of the population. It's many of them. Anytime a black man is moving around, moving freely, thinking freely, that's a threat to many people. So to me, these people are spiritually dead. So Edgar Allan Poe, his poem was Spirits of the Dead. So he said, "Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of the gray tombstone. Not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in line before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given, but the red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever, which would cling to thee forever. Now our thoughts thou shalt not banish, now our visions ne'er to vanish. From thy spirit shall thy pass, no more, like dewdrop from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token how it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries." So that's my elegy to the cock watchers and the dick police from Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. You guys can look that up. So I kind of wanted to, introduce the panel now, and I have to bring them on. So we got Brother Mad Bus Driver.
What's going on?
Hey man, thanks for joining me. I know you're a hard man to get a hold of, but since I've been in this space, a lot of brothers put me on to your content, and I know the brother Babatunde, he always talks about your content as well. So I'm very glad that I learned about your channel, because I think that you have been at this for a while. But I'm gonna bring on Verbs as well, and I want you guys to all reintroduce yourself. And I want to start with you, Mad Bus Driver, as far as just kind of telling the audience how long that you've been at this, because my understanding is that the first version of this blackmail YouTube was between 2008 and about 2014. Then another version, which is known to a lot of people as the Black Manosphere, came about in 2015, and a lot of people say it collapsed. I know you've talked a lot about what you've seen in your time as the collapse of the Black Manosphere in this year. So just some background on how you've seen this transition from the earlier version, 2008 to 2014 to 2015 to now, and how you see the movement that you started. So for a lot of people that are not familiar with you, you have a movement that you're one of the founders of called SYSBM, which is an acronym for Save Yourself Black Man. And if you could just tell us a little bit about, the movement that you've been promoting and, your time on this YouTube space.
All right, thanks, brother. First of all, I've been following, the black man's
Hold on, man, bro. You can't introduce yourself like that. You got to give us your the intellectual property. You got to hit us with that, man.
Oh shit, my bad. Mad bus driver here.
Now
brothers,
it's official, man. It's official.
And the ladies and the haters that are most definitely watching. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I've been in the game since at least 2013, 2014, trying to roll in heavy. I've been watching and seeing what's been going on for like since 2008, 2009, when the first, I guess the first wave of the gender wars and stuff. And that was, a lot of Sergeant Willie Pete, a lot of, was it Pink Elephant and Calvary is here, stuff like that. Those guys were going on, on the mission and stuff, and they've been dealing with a lot of heat, getting the stuff flagged down and all that stuff like that. Then Tommy Sotomayor came around because I got put on to him from Sergeant Willie Pete. So then I started following Tommy Sotomayor. But I really got into it heavy because this is why I'm known as Mad Bus Driver, because, I used to drive a bus. And so back in the day when I used to drive a bus, I would see how the kids that were raised by different types of parents from American, foreign, single black mothers, how they would act, how they would behave. And so that's how I started my channel and shit like that. And I realized, I pretty much had the idea what the problem is, but, I realized for sure what the real issue is. And that is, your Stargate, the type of females that are raising your children. And us men are making a mistake of reinvesting into that type of bullshit. And so, I've been, so I decided to put my 2 cents in there, and try to see if I can make some change. Because I've seen a lot of brothers get shamed and demonized, TV shows, from comedy shows, television and radio, just because they're, the mother of the children or who they're dating may be from a different culture. And I'm married to someone from a different culture, and I deal with none of this drama y'all brothers is dealing with, fooling around with the scraggle dabble. I don't know why y'all keep doing that, but I guess it's just a built-in thing. But yeah, but what we got now, what's going on, what happened to the so-called manosphere? What happened to the so-called manosphere is real simple. You allowed the scraggle dabble to infiltrate. You allowed these broads who stated from the beginning that they do not find you attractive, they do not love you, they rather be with somebody else, that you're weak and you're a sellout or you're Sambo, you got no power. You allowed these ladies to divert black men back to the plantation. And they've tried before outright trying to ban you, outright trying to argue. Now it's trying to get in by sneaking in dogs and ferrets and brass tooth goats into the game, and these guys come around acting like they're hard, acting like they're alpha men. And these are the bitchiest men of them all. And these type of men, as well as the broads that come with them, have brought enough attention to certain men who are supposed to be lords of the manosphere to corrupt their platforms. And this is where we are today. That's pretty much it.
Well, I appreciate you giving us that great intro. I'm gonna let MOT go ahead and introduce himself real quickly. Yo, MOT, I was gonna let you know, man. Your videos have been very low volume, man, and you had some good titles. And unfortunately, the volume was so low that I couldn't even listen in. And you was dropping some jewels on this whole passport gate thing. So just a little heads up. So just go ahead and introduce yourself and let them know what your thoughts are initially.
Yeah. Thanks for the feedback. This phone, and it does, like, although auto centering of the volume. So once I talk for a while, get it, and then it all of a sudden went on phone, and that's why I was recording this part and just do that because this information is way too important, and we're this nonsense out there that they won't be able to catch up, and then one, there really ain't nothing they can be able to say to you. So my challenge for male improvement, we don't bash women or anything like that, but at the end of the day, people should want a decent, well-adjusted black. If that's a threat to your own personal power, then I'm sorry about that. Everybody gets to have the man he wants in society. I'm just saying, position, the best and the greatest thing you can possibly do is to
MOT, you're
right
borging
now
pretty.
because
MOT, you're borging pretty bad, bro. Do you have like a better spot you can go to? Because I don't want brothers to miss out on what you're saying because of the connection. Is there like a better spot you can go to get a better signal?
how about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, cool. All right, yeah. So that's what my channel is about, man. Making sure that we turn this thing around because it's not going to turn around by itself. You're going to have to be the first key of this actual quest, not anybody else. So that's all I got. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks MOT for that intro. You got the mic, Baba. Like, you know, people around here, they know you as Mr. Slaying Evil. And for those that are wondering, I actually had already made videos regarding Passport Gate, and I was done talking about it because pretty much all the narratives that were pushed were just trash. So, but Baba had not got a chance to speak on this verbally, even though he had written about it on his website. And he's kind of doing like a digital tour right now of the different channels on this Passport Gate topic. So he's the one that wanted me to do this panel more so for him and Mad Bus Driver than myself. I don't really have anything to contribute more so to these talking points besides my last videos, except for a new talking point that I heard. I would like to add some of that, but really this is an opportunity for MBD and Verbs to get their opinions out there. So you got the mic, Baba. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, no problem, man. No problem. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, for me, this whole thing started a contributor on the website called Mac G, a frequent contributor on the website. He came on and he said, hey, yeah, you see what Sean James is talking about? I'm like, oh, no. I mean, so I went and checked out the video, and then he's basically, Sean James was saying how thinking black men who basically got passport owning free thinking black men, how we're looking to worship white people, and how, and I mean, we should be building with black women, we should be connecting with black women, and we're the reason why black women have derailed and all this business. So upon hearing and watching that, I had to make an article. I had to write an article straight away. I mean, so that's where this really started. And the title of that the title of that article is Passport Mocking Negroes, Muddy Bootlickers, and Agents of the Black Witch. I mean, so from there, there's been a few other people who've come out, tried to slander the thinking black men because we've got passports, we can travel about freely. Recently had a guy by the name of Super Sly 75. He came out and he basically stated that black men are traveling. He said a lot of black men are traveling abroad to have sex with minors. I mean, that was quickly debunked. I was going to write an article about it, but I thought, you know what, this is completely ridiculous because people know off the face that basically the majority of people involved in pedophilia are white men. They're the majority involved. You know what I mean? That's not a black man thing. And this is despite the fact that a black man is raised in a dysfunctional single mother household. Most black men come out of single mother households, which are dysfunctional. So the black woman will try to emasculate him. The black woman will try to turn him towards being a homosexual. The black woman will molest him. The black woman will abuse him. So, and you notice that despite all this, black men are the ones who are the most against homosexuality. We don't mess with pedophilia. All these decadent practices that black women embrace, even though we're raised in these households with these women, many of us are, or many of us have been, we're still staunchly against all these things. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the slander of black men, what's happening now is where you've got this fragmentation that you, King Sigma, have talked about. This manosphere 2.0 is now fragmented and it's now dissolved in, and now we get this manosphere 3.0 where it's a decentralized version of the manosphere 2.0. And to be honest, this at first I was kind of angry because I was like, okay, well, you know what I mean? We had that black manosphere was good. You know what I mean? The black manosphere 2.0, this was something good. And then the founders let in these black witches, and these black witches just basically run amok, and they've just destroyed everything. And notice it's only taken them a year to destroy it. You know? Just like basically when these black women were accepted fatherless home welfare policies and basically a feminism, took them 50 years to destroy an entire community. But this black manosphere, even though these black men who basically built it, they didn't need black women to build it. It wasn't built with the help of black women, but they brought black women in anyway, which is yet another issue. Why is it that certain black men always feel the need to bring in black women into their business? Leave black women out. You know what I mean? I noticed I got a friend who lives in Atlanta, and he knows what do you call it? He knows a famous ex-basketball player. I think his name is Dr. J. You know what I mean? And we went to a function, and I noticed that where everyone was mixing together, eventually it got to a point where the men separated over into one corner and the women separated over into another. I mean, and I noted that. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then again, who was the majority? The majority of the women were non-black women. I mean, so non-black women know, they recognize, okay, you know what, these men, when they go over into a corner, they're basically talking business, they're making money, which is basically sustaining us. So we best stay out of their business. You know what I mean? But black women, they can't do that. Black women can't respect black men's spaces. They always feel they got to invade. They think they can just walk in and just do what they want. You know what I mean? And it makes it even worse when you got black men who just let them in. I mean, because at the end of the day, I said before, black women have the Midas touch of destruction. Anything they touch is just crumbles. You know what I mean? There's nothing that they can put their hands to where something positive comes out of it. So why are you going to bring them into anything? But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just here to basically combat the lies. I mean, thinking black men shouldn't be dissuaded from traveling. I mean, thinking black men shouldn't be dissuaded from meeting women overseas. Thinking black men shouldn't be dissuaded from traveling just to go and relax and chill out, man. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know what I mean? And most certainly shouldn't listen to guys who haven't traveled outside of the US, who don't even own a damn passport. You know what I mean? Who haven't dealt with foreign women, but all of a sudden they're experts and authorities on the subject matters. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, at the end of the day, we just need to stand strong. I mean, we've already won. At the end of the day, people are seeing through this crap, all this black love business. And I mean, we've got to build with black women. Yet black women, when they get money, who are they giving their money to? They're giving it to other communities. So people are seeing through all this rubbish, man. But I'll just leave it at that.
Hey, thanks for that intro, Baba. So to bring a little bit of structure to this conversation, I wanted to kind of get into like the mentality of those that are so obsessed with, dick policing and worrying about where the free moving man is moving around, in particular the black man. And because for me, when I talk about that, like I said earlier, I consider there to be two groups. One is like 99% and the other one is like 1%. There's the 99% that really believe these false narratives, like truly, they believe it because they've been misinformed, or they believe it because they just hate black men, right? But then there's another group who is it's just some entertainment stuff for us. So in regards to like the 7 stages of grief, because as I kind of work through these conversations and listen to these arguments from people that I know really believe this stuff, I just started thinking about how in psychology they have the 7 stages of grief when a person is going through mourning. And for those that are not familiar with that theory, it's that people go through these different stages as they grieve some kind of like loss. And I think that just like in reference to the elegy of the Passport Gate, is that these people that have become so accustomed to controlling the minds, the movement, and the image of black men, specifically the free thinking black men and the thinking black men and the moving ones, they did not foresee a time where they would have to like step aside or get pushed aside because the black men themselves would start to take control of their own narrative, their own image, and to like wave the flag of freedom. So when we're talking about the 7 stages of grief, there's shock and denial, then there's the pain and guilt stage, there's the anger and bargaining stage, and there's depression that follows, and then you have like an upward turn, and then you have a reconstruction and working through, and then finally those that have grieved and they come to an acceptance and hope phase. And based on my time coming through to what is called Black YouTube and some call Black Manosphere 2.0, that's when I came in 2018, and I kind of noticed that the conversation related to the relationship between black men and black women, the black men and the black community, and black men and other black men, it was at the stage of what they were calling the classic man versus the Pookie and Ray Ray narrative, or that's what was going on. I came in right when that was going on, and that had been so that I consider that to be the anger phase. I think that a lot of people in regards to thinking black men were in that stage 3 of anger, you know, frustration, giving way to anger and lashing out. So these men were lashing out at each other. And so that had already been preceded by the 2nd stage of denial and the 1st stage of shock, which is basically when you learn of a loss of something, you become in the stage of shock and disbelief. So you want to deny it. And I think that generations of people that have been raised by the mainstream media, and in the last 40 years of just being in America, there was a culture of denigrating black men publicly. And some people benefited off that, but others, it was like just a outlook of hatred, you know, a scapegoating of black men. And they were able to do this unopposed for basically 40 years. And so when the black men that came through these spaces starting around 2008 started rejecting those narratives with logic and reasoning and their own voice, that I believe in 2008 started the shock stage for a lot of people who had gotten very comfortable putting their feet on the throat of free thinking black men. And so I think that what happened during the anger phase, that was preceded by the gender wars. The first gender wars that I've heard about was like 2008 to 2014. And then the second version of the gender wars came in 2015 to the beginning of 2018, when you had certain people in these spaces flagging down channels of black men that were just telling the truth, backing it up with facts. And the fact they just did not like the message, they went to war and flagging those people down. And so that's how, so it's like that the first gender war, the second gender war, then you had the classic man versus Pookie. And then you had, like, at the end of 2018 and all throughout 2019 so far, you had this influx of different kinds of females and the simps that will believe anything that they say and go wherever they're sent to go. So around here we call them matriarchal Terminator drones. That's a title that Kyriakari Jones gave to them. So salute to him. So we're kind of in that phase right now with the bargaining and the depression, because you've entered that depression stage, which is stage 5, when you start looking for scapegoats, right? So part of the dick policing and the cock watching is based on this is that depression testing phase where they're throwing out anything they can to find something else outside of themselves externally to blame for their pain and grief. So that's why this whole cock watching narrative appeared, because they're moving through the stages of grief. And so the next phase, obviously the stage 6, that's the pure testing, where that's like you just throw out whatever you can. So like if someone dies, for example, and it was a car accident, instead of accepting it for what it is, you're gonna blame, like, you know, the other driver or whatever may have happened. You're gonna focus on that instead of focusing on healing yourself and moving forward. And obviously the last stage of grief is the 7th stage. And for me, that's at the point where after a conversation like this, those that are continuing to pocket watch, cock watch and dick police, and they just accept that, you know what, these people are gone. These people have separated themselves and they have the right to. And this is something that they have to learn to accept and deal with the reality of the situation. And I think that we're about, you know, another year from that, but we'll probably be in this stage 6 and 7 for about another 6 months, because like I said, that's the scapegoat phase. So that I don't know what the next narrative will be, because this one has already been buried. All their arguments have been buried. So I think that in 2020, pretty much around the time of the election, because that election is going to show really where the state of Black America is. We're going to get a whole bunch of census data that comes out. So that's going to create a whole bunch of other content or whatever. But around sometime after the election or so, once we see how the outcome is and the census and all that, that'll be the acceptance phase. And, you know, what I initially thought was going to become Black Manosphere 3.0, I just think that people are just going to break off into their own sectors, and they're going to create like their own thing where they building with people that are like mine. Because I kind of found out by being in this space that the one people under one umbrella for the average American Black people, it doesn't work. We're too different in terms of like our goals, our agenda, our cultural upbringings, and it's just too diverse. So I think what's going to happen is that the new standard will be based on common interest, mutual interest, and personal benefit. And that's just what it is. All this like hope talk and all this abstract talk and this fantastical talk, I think it'll be finished this year. And it'll be more about like, what are we really trying to do here? How are we going for it? So I hand the mic back in reverse order to you guys, what you think about, you know, if it's really like a grief thing or if it's something else. So just back in reverse order.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle. It's been going on. This type of thing is just out in the public. What we're dealing with, people have dealt with in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. That's when we had Malcolm X, Menace to Society. We had, Def Comedy Jam. You had all those Black first, with what's his name? Martin Lawrence will come out. Hey, we're black again this week, or whatever it is, on Def Comedy Jam. It was this whole movement back in the 90s. It was the reset button right after Jungle Fever was released, because people were stating back then that brothers was out here messing with light, bright, damn near white women, stuff like that. They were complaining about that back then. They were complaining that brothers were making moves back then. So what happens is every so many years, they have a reset button where they try to get as many Black men back on that reservation. Now you're wondering why we are dealing with this issues of what it seems like the 7 stages of grief and stuff like that. What you're dealing with is you're dealing with policies that came from slavery. The slave master controlled where a Black man puts his penis. The slave master controlled how many women a Black man could sleep with. He controlled the bodies of those Black women that he had in slavery. He put in those policies, and there's only one side of the community, as you could say, but we're not a monolith, that has internalized that damn near to its genetics. It's almost like it's in the DNA. And that side keeps manifesting itself over and over and over again. After, the whole women's liberation movement and stuff like that back in the 70s, they keep rehashing this repeat cycle of trying to dick police Black men into only choosing a particular type of female. Now, you may want to tap dance around it and say, the other gentleman says, you want to be more neutral and not attack, I guess, any a woman. Well, you got to understand, brother, you are under attack. They're coming for you. So if you're not towing the line, if you're not saying what they want to hear, like if you're not speaking that they are God or goddesses or whatever it is, even if you say you got an open mind and you date all types of women, they're not trying to hear all that. To them, you're a coon, a sellout, a Sambo, an F-boy, all of that in a bag of chips. It's an actual, what you would call like a Cold War. They actually have strategies for your ass. The problem is now we live in a time of the internet and social media. So we could talk to each other. Before, we couldn't talk to each other like that. You had to deal with the barbershop talk. You had to deal with the brother was down the street that you're seeing him, making some moves, or you ask him some questions. You had to deal with your brother coming back from the military and you asking him what was going on overseas. Now you have the internet. Now you can immediately do the research and find out what a person like the gentleman that we were speaking about knows what he's talking about or not. Because they always scare you. This is nothing new. Now, I'm going to give you a little quick story and I'm out. there's a quick story, then I'll let you guys, other people speak. Anyways, so Canada has, their version of the Midwest. That's where Alberta, Calgary, that part of the British Columbia, that Midwest that's north of Wyoming and all of that stuff. They had, back in the early 1900s, they wanted to settle that area. So they put out ads in America for Americans to settle their Midwest. And a lot of Black people just picked up that ad and took up that offer and migrated north to that area. You can go look it up. Blacks in Alberta, Winnipeg area like that. They migrated up there back in the early 1900s to settle. Well, it scared the white folks up there. It scared them so much that they decided that they were going to send they hire preachers to come down to the South and tell the people in the South scary, spooky stories about what's going on up there in the Midwest, saying that you're going to freeze to death, nothing grows, things of that nature, to scare the people to stay where they were. Because the drive to get out of where they were was so great, because they were dealing with oppression, Jim Crow. So why not? I mean, people, they thought, we'll suffer through a hellish winter if we could be free. But they didn't want them to come up there like that. They were thinking more whites were going to do it. See, that type of ideology, that type of thinking still exists today. They know a lot of people believe in spookism, and they can scare you to stay where you are. And that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to scare Black men to stay and to not explore. Because once you start seeing other options, you're moving heavy. You're not going to want to deal with the BS you're dealing with here. They can't compete. The gentleman that was, that doesn't have a passport, that hasn't left his own state, telling you not to leave the country, that gentleman was spoke about A$AP Rocky. Like, look at the example of A$AP Rocky, what he has done, and this is to scare you. Well, I just looked up A$AP Rocky. He's doing fine. To me, he just dropped a new video, a new song. He's dating a Brazilian model that none of these scraggles are going to look ever anything close like. So it's like, it's this fantasy that they're trying to, this nightmare that they're trying to portray that is not true. I yield the floor.
I believe it's UMOT and then verbs. You there, man, tomorrow? Okay, Bobby, you got the mic, bro.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? See, you know what it is? What I realized with a lot of these guys, right, is that a lot of them, basically, you got with this in relation to this passport scoffing, you got a lot of these guys that are just afraid to travel, right? And then where they're afraid to travel, they're basically they're having to settle. Well, through their fear, they're just settling down with the Black Witch. But what I notice is a lot of them are compromising, and I noticed that it doesn't matter where you go in the United States, that the quality of Black women is in the toilet. It doesn't matter where you go. You can go to whatever state you want. The consensus is that the quality of Black women is going down the toilet, and it's the same thing here in the United Kingdom. I mean, you got Black women with weave, and then in the United States, you got 80% of Black women are overweight, and then you basically got these Black women who think they're auditioning for Pirates of the Caribbean. They got so many tattoos all over the place. I mean, and then you got Black women, obviously, the majority of whom got mental issues. I mean, so if you're basically going to still deal with them, you're going to still choose to deal with them, then you're going to have to compromise on something. And that's what a lot of these guys have done. They've compromised on stuff. So a lot of them have basically taken on board single mothers. A lot of them have taken on board these Harridans who've got these weave, these 20-inch yakis. A lot of them have taken on these women who are overweight. Some of them have taken on these women who've got tattoos all over the place. You know what I mean? And then not to mention the attitudes that come with these women. So when they see thinking Black men going abroad and hooking up with like very attractive non-Black females who don't have children, I mean, these guys become extremely jealous, man, and envious. I mean, so as far as they're concerned, it's where, okay, Well, I'm over here eating the trash, and you eating good over there. Nah. You got to come back. You got to eat the trash with me. And again, it comes back to the crabs in the barrel mentality. So again, what they do is they start putting out all these narratives. I mean, start throwing out all these slanderous statements. I mean, like you got your, what do you call it? Like, obviously in the case of Sean James, I mean, throwing out all these statements. Well, turns out that he doesn't have the credentials to speak about anything that he spoke about. Then you got Super Sly 75. He's coming out and he said that a lot of black men are going abroad because they want to basically kiddie fiddle. I mean, it's like, which is completely false. Again, like I said before, you've got, that's predominantly white men who are into that kind of thing. Again, like you mentioned, King Sigma, we got Epstein, and we've got all these other, you mentioned that documentary the other day. I mean, that just exposes white men. And then you've got the Roman Catholic Church. It's, again, who is it? It's predominantly white men who are into that kind of pedophilia type stuff. But then you do a little bit of research on Super Sly 75. Guess what? He's a cleanup man. He's a janitor. Turns out he's a stepfather. I never knew that. I mean, he's looking after someone else's seed. So then from there, again, the pieces start coming together, and you can start to see the motivation. You can start to see what his motives are and why. I mean, so he's seeing black men go abroad, go overseas, and get with decent looking, attractive, very attractive non-black women, I mean, who don't have any children. And he's stuck on the plantation with a black witch raising somebody else's seed. So this is my whole point, man. These guys are just jealousy, man. These guys are afraid. They're afraid to branch out. And it's what I keep saying. The spell that this black woman, I have to take my hat off to this black woman in terms of the spell that she's put on these black men. Because it's to such a point where they're fighting against you, and you're trying to bring them the freedom that they need. But they're fighting against you. So I have to rate this black woman in terms of that spell and this hypnosis, in this trance that she's put these black men in. But again, what's happening is more black men are snapping out of the trance because they're seeing that this black woman is sinking lower and lower into degradation and degeneracy. So if you was to basically, if black women were to behave themselves, right, if they were to behave themselves, then more black men, the rate of black men leaving the building wouldn't be as much. But because black women just think they can just do anything they want, they look at black men as slaves. I mean, when you talk about black community, you're talking about black women. That's what you're talking about. You're not talking about anything else. It's black women. And when it comes to the community, black men are viewed as the flunkies of it. You're viewed as the outsiders. You just bring in the money. You bring in the resources. And then the black witch gets to use the resources for whatever she wants. So that's how you're viewed. So they view you as a slave anyway. I mean, so if they were to treat you good, then not so many black men would be leaving. But because this black witch is so nasty, she's so vindictive, she's so evil. I mean, and she can't mask her evil intent at all. I mean, black men are waking up saying, what the heck is this? And then they're seeing brothers like us. We're going away. We're going to different countries. We're just dealing with non-black women. You know what I mean? And seeing brothers like us, you know what I mean? And they realize, you know what? You know what I mean? Well, I can get that as well. Now, those are the brothers who basically have a free-thinking seed in their head. I mean, but most of these guys, man, where the seed may have been planted, the seed was kicked out. It was rooted out of the ground long time by this black witch. But there's still some brothers. There are a few brothers that have that seed. And it just needs to be germinated. So that's where brothers like me, MBD, you King Sigma, Man of Tomorrow, that's where we come in. We basically wake up. We wake up these brothers. We show them, look, all this stuff that's happened to you, not your fault. It's the fault of this black female. All this stuff that this black female done to you, it's not your fault. She's not mentally there. She's mentally unstable. And so we're just showing these brothers a different path, man. And so unfortunately, you got a lot of these pro-black dick police, black first, whatever they want to call themselves. They feel, oh, well, we got the right. We you know what I mean? We're trying to basically save the community. I say the community is already dead. It's gone. It's finished. Don't have a community, man. Now you have black people living within a vicinity. You know what I mean? But there's no community. You know what I mean? Community means basic. It doesn't just mean shops and businesses and all that. It also means actual community, as in, yeah, we help each other out. Black people don't help each other out, man. When was the last time you received any help from black women? You know what I mean? The most of my help's been received from people outsiders. Most of my help's been received from white women, white men. They're the ones who help me. I don't get any help from black people. You know what I mean? So this whole talk about the community, and when they hear people like me speak, they think, oh, well, you're bringing about division. I say, you're already divided, man. We're already divided. Look at SYSBM. That's a division. That's an offshoot. You know what I mean? And then you've got the MGTOW, and then you've got the pro-black B1 and all that business. You got several divisions, man. They keep talking about, well, we need to come together. No, we can't come together, man. You stay over there, do what you're doing in your corner. We'll stay over here, do what we're doing in our corner. And again, this is that, and it's not SYSBM brothers saying we need to come together. No, it's these pro-blacks. They're the ones who are saying we need to come together. But what come together means is you free thinking brothers need to bring your backside back to the plantation so we can use your resources, so we can give it to this black woman. I mean, everything is surrounded by this black woman. Everything you do is just towards this black woman. I'm not interested, man. All right, I stopped dealing with black women 14 years ago. I've been going good. But again, that's nothing here in the UK. That's nothing for us because we came here on passports. You know what I mean? The dating out ratio here in the United Kingdom is almost 60% for black men. 60%, man. So that's nothing for us. You know what I mean? And then, again, when I come back to the traveling, the besmirching of traveling, brothers, again, that's nothing for us here in the UK. In fact, here in the UK, when we hear these pro-blacks talking about, oh yeah, don't travel now. You know what I mean? Don't get your passport. That's weird for us because that's normal for a black man here. Normal for black people here to have passports. In fact, if you don't have a passport, you're going to be mocked. You're going to be ridiculed, man. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we just got to keep pushing forward, man. A lot of these guys are jealous. They're afraid. You know what I mean? They basically they've thrown themselves into a raw deal, and they realize it when they start seeing the quality of women that basically men who are free thinking, the quality of women that they're getting. And they see that and they're just incredibly jealous and envious. And they're thinking, okay, well, how can I basically persuade this guy to come back and eat the dirt that I'm eating? It's not going to happen as far as I'm concerned. Free thinking black men are free thinking black men. We see through the lies and the rubbish, man. So I'll leave it at there.
Yeah, what's also amazing is some of these gentlemen that talk that yickety yak about traveling and don't travel and all of that stuff. These same men now want to write books about how to survive when shit hits the fan, how to survive the apocalypse. And I'm like, but you can't even survive out your mama's house. How are you going to tell the world how to tell brothers how to survive? The end of the world, the zombie apocalypse, if you're still chilling with old Bessie. So the crazy thing about it is this. You're right. Brothers for SYSBM, we're not trying to join the fold of joining the community and all that stuff. But another thing about what gets me is these guys that tell you brothers are traveling, you out here passport pimping and all of that stuff, right? Same type of brothers are going to be the same type of brothers going to be like, we need to have our own country, our own nation, our own, a place we can call home. But the problem with that is if your ass ain't traveling, how are you going to be able to establish such a place? You have to do some research to be able to get out there and find where would be a good place to go. You might be able to buy some land and establish a community. Staying in your mama's house isn't going to help you with that. What you have here is this. I try to leave, it's like the name that shouldn't be spoken, but you're going to have to speak it. Black women only like talk. They don't like work, unless you're working a 9-to-5, where you could bring that money home. They don't like you to actually do the things that you speak about, like building a nation, building a community. They don't like that. Because that would require you to be a leader. That would require a man to actually do what they keep saying men should do. And that means they would have to fall back. They would have to fall into their position. And they don't like to be told what to do. So they'll accept your talk. You can talk about it. You can talk about it all you want. Just don't actually do it. And that's the problem we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of men who understand that all they have to do is talk. They don't actually have to do. So you're a queen, you're a goddess, you're Mother Earth, you're God itself. But what are you actually doing for said God? That's my thing.
Yeah, I got to agree with that, man. Yeah, again, it's like see, a lot of black men, they don't understand what their position is within black society, man. I mean, a lot of black men really don't understand what their position is. They're, especially these simps, man. These simps still can't figure it out. I mean, when you got likes of Sean James basically making videos talking about there's still hope for black love, and this is something else, man. Like again, if you're gonna basically this is what happened to, as you call him, MBD, Umizoomi, Dr. Umar Johnson. The same thing happened to him, where he was going on radio show after radio show and basically like berating black men for getting into interracial relationships. I mean, but then eventually, like, black men got sick and tired of it, man, and said, "Look, bruh, have you seen the state of this black woman that you're telling us to get with? I mean, this is like, what? How do you expect us to basically forge a relationship with this woman? She don't want to listen. She's the leader. I mean, she's not going to accept us leading. And I mean, and when she does get money, she's putting it into other people's communities. I mean, how are we going to build with this woman?" So eventually it just got to a point where, look, okay, no problem. You're going to have to lead by example. I mean, and again, it's the same thing with Sean James. If Sean James is saying that there's still hope for black love, that he's going to have to lead by example, and we're going to have to see his woman. Because if we ain't seeing his woman now, you can't tell us there's hope. I mean, there's no hope, man. And again, if you basically still want to, again, I have to keep saying it. If you still want to deal with this black female, you're going to have to compromise, man. There's something you're compromising on. And I guarantee that the majority of these guys, when you look at their women, you see exactly what they compromised on, man. You know what I mean? What do you call it? When you've got, I don't know, like I said before, you've got the black women who wear weave. I don't tolerate no weave. My missus ain't got no weave. You know what I mean? You've got the black women who, what do you call it? Who are overweight. Most black women are overweight. Again, so you compromise on that, or you compromise on these black women with these tattoos. They look like a roadmap. Or you're compromising on black women with this tacky attitude, or you're compromising on black women who have basically, they're unhealthy. They're not hygienic. You know what I mean? That's what you find. You find that you're compromising on something with these black women. Whereas when you basically deal with non-black females, I mean, you basically can have a high standard and you can get that high standard met, no problem. You know what I mean? Again, you're compromising with a black woman who's basically not that attractive. And most black women today, they're just not that attractive. I mean, again, because of that extra testosterone they're carrying, which is what that I think that Japanese Psychology Today, that Japanese dude, he basically, you know what I mean? He said, look, these black women are not attractive because of that extra testosterone they're carrying. I mean, they tried to call him racist, but the dude was correct. He was right. You know what I mean? Look how coarse face and masculine a lot of these black women look. It's just incredible. But and then look, I watched this super sly dude on what's his name? I watched him on Solo TV 84's channel, and he seemed to just be doubling down. You know what I mean? He just seemed to be doubling down on his stupidity. I'm like, oh, all right, then whatever. And he was saying, oh, how could he be jealous because he's got a passport and he's been traveled and all that? Yeah, but the fact is you're a stepfather. The fact is you're looking after and raising a seed that's not yours. The fact is you're dealing with a black witch who I suspect doesn't look that good. I suspect she's wearing a weave, or she's overweight, or Sutton, again, going back to what I said before, he's compromised on Sutton. So he's not only compromised on the fact that he's dealing with a single mother, there's some other things that he's compromised on as well. I guarantee you, as soon as you see his woman, he's compromised. You see exactly what he's compromised on. See, this is the problem. You know what I mean? So it's not the case of he's got a passport, so he's not jealous because he's traveled as well. It's the fact that he's compromised. He's compromised on things that he shouldn't have done. And he's looking at us who didn't compromise and he feels some kind of way. But what do you call it? And then what was it? I'm just looking in the chat here. Got a Trick Lessons podcast. He says, according to Sean, if you bring up him not having a girlfriend, that's an ad hominem attack. No, but that's very valid. That's not an ad hominem attack. See, this is what the Black Witch does, man. The Black Witch tries to demonize constructive criticism. Because at the end of the day, if this guy hasn't had a girlfriend for such a long time, how is he going to speak on female nature? How's he going to come out and say, oh, yeah, dude, this is this is basically how this female nature works, and this is how these foreign women work. How can he speak on these things? So no, that's legitimate. That's a legitimate point. If you ain't had a girlfriend in so long, and not only that, because of the internet now, pre-internet, women were different to what they are now. So at the end of the day, you know what I mean? He's got no experience. He's got no current experience, man. So how can he sit there and tell us about female nature and traveling and all this other business, man? The guy's got no damn experience, man. You know what I mean?
Question is it? I keep getting different numbers. People keep sending me. Is it 1989 or 1999 since the last female homie has been with?
I think it's 1989, I believe. That's what I heard anyway.
So
it's 1989.
I was 12, 11, 12. Then, damn. So was he? How old is this gentleman?
Yeah, I think he's in his 50s. I think he's in his 50s, if I'm correct.
Oh, man. Damn.
Yeah. It's bad, man.
Yeah.
It's bad. Yeah. And I'm just reading the comment here, right? It says, my ice is colder. It says that apparently last night, Sean James tripled down and he said that black men that travel are incels. That's in addition, by the way, to him saying that black men who travel are looking for white acceptance. So we're not traveling to just meet decent women. We're not traveling to just unwind and de-stress. What King Sigma talked about the other day, how basically just going on holiday just de-stresses you. And I can vouch for that. I went to Spain back in Wednesday. I went to Spain back in June. And I mean, and that was relaxing. Spain's only an hour and 40 minutes away from me on the plane. And I can vouch for that. You just de-stressing. But yeah, that's what he's saying, man. He's saying, you know what? We're incels now. We're basically co-signing white supremacy, and we're basically seeking white acceptance when we're traveling.
So that means Tariq Rashid is an incel. That means Umar Johnson is an incel. That means Brother Polite is an incel. That means any black man that hops on the plane is an incel that travels. But then if you need to get back to the motherland, you're going to have to travel to get to the motherland. That means you're an incel if you have to travel to go to the motherland. You see, when you start applying logic, this is what I do to the gentleman who told me that white people have no souls. I apply basic logic to him, and I flip it on him, and he always squirms because he keeps getting caught every time in his BS. He talks. It's just Looney Tunes dealing with this guy. Anyways, but yeah, when you're dealing with men like that, what you want to do is give them as little light as possible, because I guess they need to feed off of that. But anybody with half a brain knows that's clownish shit. Maybe we don't need to fish for the black men who are lapping up their the BS that these men are putting out, because if they're that dumb, you don't want them amongst your ranks. If they're that stupid to believe that A$AP Rocky's an incel for traveling overseas, that Obama's an incel because he traveled overseas, dumb shit like that, you don't want those type of gentlemen into your ranks and shit. But these guys they're seeking cash, and they're seeking ass. They're seeking the money that they can get. Everybody's trying to be a Tommy Sotomayor, and they're looking at trying to get that black ass, and that's just what it is. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, but it's deeper than that, though.
It's probably not. It's probably not deeper than that. A lot of these dudes that are out here doing this, they've seen that you can make some money off the internet like that, and they've seen they can get attention off of it. And some, not all. You're right. It is deeper. It's a deeper issue. But a lot of these guys, it's just one level deep. Because if you confront them, and you corner them, and you start asking them some real questions, these dudes be like, "Yo, I'm just doing it for entertainment, and I'm trying to holler at this broad." They're trying to be like Robert Perkins. What he's doing it for. He's just doing it so he can get some booty online and get some donations.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is nuclear fission. They can no longer cannibalize the water around them, which is most men. And it's not even that big percentage of men who don't want to mess with them. They still have a lot of people who really want to be with them and all that kind of stuff. It's just that they know that they just don't want you to move on to a better deal, because they know they're not a better deal at all. And at the end of the day, those people who defend these women actions by acting like they're so concerned about black men and whole, they don't really give a shit about black men either, because their whole card of masculinity is based on having the respect of this woman. Not productivity, not the shit that you've done in your life, just basically socially retarding yourself so that way you stay clear within the scope of happiness of this woman. They don't have an individual identity outside of this person. They just don't. And it's very sad because you don't see other men of other nationalities conspiring with women to leave productive men not in charge like you see here in this community. I mean, you just don't see it. And it's just that, most of these people, they don't show you their personal lives for a very specific reason. Because the personal life would show the actual track record based on the stuff that they talk about. Because none of these people can pretty much show you that they have an intact family structure that could compete with any other patriarchy everywhere else in the world based on the system that they decide to attach themselves to. So what they do is they want to stay within broken markets and broken situations to where you don't have to provide proof. You can just talk all the stuff you want to. Because as long as you're the person promising and you're not really the person held to account to be the person who delivers, they actually win, which is actually a hustler's level of proof, which is don't like it, don't listen, but allow me to keep poisoning the waterways, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's what I was stating before. They don't want you to actually do anything. They just want you to speak about it. They like men like Umar Johnson and Brother Polite and Sonetta and General Seti. I mean, all these guys are talking big time shit, but they're not actually doing the big time shit that they are speaking about. Like General Seti, we could put up 200 million. We could take the white man out. Come on, man, you don't got an army to even speak about putting up 200 million. Brother Polite.
Yeah, but here's the reason why they can't partner with those people. See, here's the con. The truth is they don't want to deal with these niggas either. That's why come they don't form businesses or do anything else. Because the moment they try to do anything, the people who they've been promising shit to this whole time would come through and pretty much take everything that they got. Because they at that point they'll realize it's a lie. So they're leaving it. So they're promising other people's futures to those people who they're actually suckering. So as long as they don't build, and as long as they're waiting on us to build for them, actually the onus is on us to deliver for those people. Now, if they'd started doing anything else besides releasing books, CDs, tapes, and fire and brimstone stupid-ass speeches, and they actually had to get out there and build, now you're going to have 900,000 people lined up trying to be the first one in line off the stuff that they've been promised for the rest of their life. But see, that's why they don't build. They can't possibly build. One, they don't want to deal with the people who they're suckering. And two, there's no way they could be able to meet the demand once they did start building. But they keep these people in this holding phase by keeping them wanting shit that ain't going to happen. And that's really on them.
That's true. But, the community allows that. And that's because men aren't leading in them households in enough numbers to actually influence said community. So this is what we got. We got men who just promise and promote hype, but don't actually do anything because the women don't require these men to actually do anything.
Not good.
Not good what?
Wait, hold on a second. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. Trick Lessons podcast says, according to Super Sly 75, if we didn't have our American or Western status, we wouldn't be celebrating traveling. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Again, when it comes to the United Kingdom, man, traveling for a black person, whether it be black man or black woman, is standard because we came here on passports, man. It's standard for us. You know what I mean? So again, when we hear basically these pro-black, black first dudes talking about, nah, don't travel, you're gonna get killed over in certain X place, or you know what I mean? Nah, you gotta stay in your own land and all that. That's like foreign talk. That's like some Twilight Zone business to us. You know what I mean? Traveling is standard, and you notice that traveling is standard for black people around the world, except this pro-black contingent in the US. You talk to other blacks, you talk to the blacks in Africa, they're going to say, what the heck are you talking about, man? You know what I mean? It's like traveling is normal for them. It's normal for black people everywhere else. It's just this certain segment of blacks in the United States who are pushing this don't travel narrative. It's normal everywhere else. And of course, it's normal amongst non-black people. Non-blacks travel. They don't have a problem. You know what I mean? They travel for a variety of reasons. Business, holidays, pleasure, what do you call it? You know what I mean? All kinds of things. Travel for romance, all kinds of business. You know what I mean? Honeymoons, vac. I mean, come on, man. I mean, so again,
I think that was that was one of the more humorous aspects of this whole conversation, because for the time that I've been in this space, I had never seen this before. I had never seen like a false narrative created to attack the free movement of black men. When I came into this space, that's what the whole conversation was about. The whole conversation was about how can black men educate themselves? How can black men become healthier? How can black men move around and explore? That was the whole conversation. So it's amazing to see that in less than like 12 months, to see it go from that being the whole basis of this space and conversation was about black men becoming self-actualized and finding out what they can do outside of this American matrix to stay in the American matrix. So that really stood out in my mind and had me just kind of shook over the last week that this had became a narrative when it was the exact opposite of what I thought that this whole space was. But I'm glad that that has been clarified now that, for those that are free thinking, free movement, those that are SYSBM, those that are walking on the path of individuality and passport bros, because I noticed that most of the hatred, there's an even stronger hatred for the passport bros than the SYSBM, for example, and just the free movement. Like something about the passport bros really, really triggers these individuals, because like the difference between the passport bro and my understanding of SYSBM versus what I refer to as free thinking, free movement is that the passport bro, they don't believe the American women are worth dealing with at all, right? So the passport bro either believes that he tends not to want to deal with American women, or he absolutely does not deal with American women. So that's the passport bro lane. And I noticed that the guys like that really seem to trigger these conversations. The SYSBM, my understanding of it in this space is that it's about exploring your options wherever you could find them. That's always been my understanding about SYSBM. And then they have their own little groupings within SYSBM. And that kind of relates to what I say when I say just free movement. For me, it's like, if you want to move around from city to city, state to state, region to region, country to country, that's your natural right and your protected right as a citizen of the United States. America is one of the countries where the U.S. passport is accepted in pretty much, more countries than I think any of the countries in the world. And because of the way that our money, the strength of our dollar, the way that our economy is the anchor of the world, it gives an American a lot of power. And I think that that's one of the fears of a lot of people, is that Black American men will learn that of their actual power, because there's always so much attention on what is only 5.5% of the U.S. population. I find that fascinating, that 5.5% of the U.S. population draws so much negative attention, even when they're doing positive things. And there's all this campaign to always to bring down a notch or to lessen any positive impacts that a Black man makes. So a Black man says that, the current sexual marketplace is it's biased towards females to such a large degree. It's time for me to move around and try something different. A guy wants to leave his small town in a certain state to a bigger town. The people there will tell him, no, you should just stay here. Ain't nothing in that bigger city for you. A brother says, this region is not popping for me. I got to hit the road, go to a different region. Oh, don't go to that region. They do this or they do that. Always. So I noticed that people always tend to appeal to the negative rather than to the positive. And when I talk about the pillars of the free thinking Black man, and I talk about, self-education, self-improvement, self-empowerment, as you work your way up Maslow's hierarchy of needs to become a self-actualized man, you have to wake up every morning with the positive mind. You have to wake up every morning trying to do something productive with your life. And you have to learn how to screen out the negativity. And I think for so long, what was happening is that because the world wants to see the American Black man as a monolithic group, they tried to put us all under one tent. So they wanted to flatten black maleness in America, right? So we're all the same, no matter how good, no matter how bad you are, you're all just one group, because that's easier to control. When we talk about propaganda and we talk about the mechanisms that elites and those in leadership positions or in management of the social engineering schemes, because there's such a small group that controls so much in America, they have to keep the different forces and population in certain boxes and lanes that they can control. And one of the ways that the black male has been manipulated is always been through the black American female. You see what I'm saying? And there's been a certain group amongst the black American female population that takes like a lot of pleasure and gets an orgasmic response to their black male hatred porn. And unfortunately, because a lot of the men that have come up in these kind of matriarchal environments, they have taken on such the feminine spirit that they worry about your dick as much as the black American one. And that shit is hella suspect to me, bro. I'm just going to be honest. That I understand why the American black woman is so concerned about the movements of black men, because she knows that this is her greatest chance for any sort of companionship, right? Because we all know that based on some of the videos that guys like Brian Solange, Tommy Sotomayor, Organic, and the articles that Baba writes, is that every time these women get a chance to either throw black American men under the bus or they get a chance to get themselves a bottom shelf brat, they jump at it. So there's been so many myths that have been deconstructed in this space, even in the short time that I've been in it. And one of this most loyal woman that don't even exist. So I think that as more and more black men just deconstruct these narratives, spread those narratives, those that benefited from the black matriarchy and had a nice position in it, which is a small minority of people, but benefited from the other people being complacent and confused, they are holding on for dear life. Like I said, they're in that stage 5, stage 6 right now. And it's they're pretty much finished, right? Because these men are starting to see that it's a privilege in a lot of ways to be living in a industrialized country like the United States, with that ability to move around, make your money here and things like that, and go to other places. And that creates disincentives for bad behavior. When large groups of any kind of group moves around, it will have different effects, right? So it's like, if you have a group of black men, let's just take 25% of the population that was stuck in a certain environment. If we're talking in terms of like the sexual marketplace, because those who are stuck in a certain market and told to limit themselves to a small pool, you got who benefits from you limiting your options. That's what you have to think about. So you got to always ask, who benefits from my misery? And the group that benefits the most from your misery are those black men who want to measure themselves against you, especially in terms of look and body count, but more specifically, the American black woman who can keep a nice steady supply of orbiters that won't go outside of the group that is only a socially constructed group to find their happiness. So they benefit. Those are the groups that really benefit from it. And of course, the white males who sit at the top of the American sexual hierarchy, not on a biological level, but just from a status standpoint, they want to maintain their position as well. Because as long as you keep the female population here overinflated with a supply of men chasing after lower and lower returns, well, the white male is the actual best beneficiary of that system, because now he has you trapped here. And that's what's so funny, is the relationship between the so-called pro-black simps and the pro-black daggles, is that they actually show their cards every time that they're doing more and more work for the same white supremacists that they talk about, right? Because the white male, he benefits the most from you not moving around, because in 2 ways at least, you don't gain a global perspective, and the fact that the world doesn't get to see that you're actually a total rejection of stereotypes that the American media and the Madison Avenue propaganda machine has been pushing on black Americans since forever. But especially with with the television, radio, and the internet, they have to push those stereotypes. And the quickest way to destroy a stereotype is to encounter something that is the exact opposite, right? So if they say that the black man is an uneducated brute, and then you got black thinking men that are the exact opposite of a brute going around the country, that has a big impact on how the outside world sees America, and also how it sees black men. and they have a serious investment in keeping black men in an inferior position and limited in their movement. So you always got to look at who benefits from your misery, who benefits from these talking points of save the community and things like that. None of these people care about black men's lives. We've already talked about that on the other podcast about the homicide rate, 6,000 to 8,000 a year or something like that right now of the last decade. So, and then 87% of those are by other black men. We've talked about the save the children narrative. They don't care about children because America has more well-funded, more organized sex rings than probably anywhere on the planet. Right here in America, you have a whole movement where they've added P to their little sexual alternative sex alphabet, and the P stands for pedophilia, but no one wants to talk about that. NAMBLA closed down for the most part because they've now been integrated into the alphabet movement, and they're going to be adding P, and they're also fighting. Right now, we know that the federal age of consent in America is 16, but they're aiming to lower that to 14 over the next 2 or 3 years. So they're already seasoning the public with passing all these laws where you have to learn these narratives. Your children are being prepared to be the prey of the next generation of American pedophiles and different kind of alternative sex lifestyles. So we know they don't give a fuck about the kids because they're actually sacrificing their children on the altar of these alternative lifestyles. So these are kind of then they got this new, I guess they got a new narrative of men traveling to be incels, which is easily refuted by the fact that actually by that man that is in an incel position traveling, he actually, the moment that he jumps on that plane, he becomes a non-incel. He is no longer an incel because that means involuntarily celibate, right? So if these guys are going overseas and now they're actually getting that attention for whatever the reason they're getting it is, because they put themselves in a hypergamous situation now. So it's okay to be in a hypergamous situation in America, but it's not okay for a man to take himself to a situation where now he is at the top of the hypergamy pyramid. That is just like the most odd irrationality. But you know what? I've come to expect that from certain groups of people and their talking points. But that's kind of where this whole thing is. So I'll get the mic back to you guys and, let you get your round. And then I want to kind of come to some of these other false narratives. And in particular, I want to talk about what I call the you go in there to trick narrative. So you got the mic back, Verbs and Matt Buster, whichever you want to go first.
Passport pimping. That's what they call it, passport pimping.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the thing about it that gets me is this. So if you're going to be passport pimping, what is the real problem? Is the real problem the passport, or is the real problem the pimping? Because if it's the pimping the problem is, then you need to deal with that regardless if they're traveling overseas or not. If these guys are traveling overseas to mess with young kids, that is the real issue. Dudes trying to mess with young kids, not the fact that they're trying to travel overseas. So if you want to stop them from messing with young kids, regardless where they're at. That's the thing that I understand with, they're trying to put a negative connotation on traveling. That's stupid. So the whole passport pimping and being a gigolo overseas. I mean, but if you were going to do that passport pimping, right, that would be smart to do because, the STDs rates, the sexually transmitted rates in the United States, especially in the South, especially in Atlanta, is really high. So you might want to just go on ahead and if you're going to do your freak where it's not so dangerous to get your freak on. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, again, this whole passport. I mean, this whole jihad against passport holding black men is like, again, it's just foreign. It's just foreign to me, man. But at the end of the day, anyone can see, like, when you look at the quality of black women. Again, I wrote an article called "Contrast and Compare," or "Compare and Contrast," whichever way round it was, and I showed you black women from the 1950s and the 1960s, and I compared them to modern day black women, and you can clearly see the difference, man. You see the difference. Like, you can see that modern day black women are in the toilet. So again, how can you basically stand there and tell black men, nah, you can't go anywhere. You just stay here on the plantation and deal with this trash. You know what I mean? Again, just because you've got certain black men who've decided, you know what, I'm going to compromise, I'm just going to basically compromise myself. So I'm going to pick up a woman who's got 7 children, or I'm going to pick up a woman who's got a weave in her head, or I'm going to pick up a woman who's got a mash up face, or I'm going to pick up a woman who's built like an oil tanker, or I'm going to pick up a woman with all these tattoos on her, or I'm going to pick up a woman who's unhygienic. I mean, that's these guys. That's what they've done. They just compromise. It's just a compromising situation. That's what happens when you're dealing with this black woman. This isn't like basically back in the 80s and 90s where there was still a reasonable amount of black women. I mean, that looked all right. They looked reasonable. They looked decent. And don't forget, back then, more black women were in shape. But now you're dealing with a case where most black women are out of shape. Most black women don't look good. And again, black women, like you got a hell of a lot of black women who just look masculine. Why? Because of that testosterone, extra testosterone they're carrying. I mean, why? Because they embraced feminism. Feminism is a nasty spirit, which is now starting to change these black women. It's starting to change the way they look. If you look at these feminists, man, these feminists, an awful lot of them look masculine. Why? Because feminism is a spirit, man. I mean, it starts to change. Actually, you know what I mean? Nature is starting to say, okay, so you want to take on board the characteristics of a man? No problem. I'll abide by what you want. And nature is starting to change that. I mean, that's one of the reasons anyway, why you got so many black women who look so masculine, man. You know what I mean? But, yeah, but like I said, this whole idea of trying to restrict black men from traveling, man, I'm like, again, that's a foreign concept, man. And it's nowhere else in the world, man. It's nowhere else. It's just there's that particular contingent of pro-black, black first, whatever they want to call themselves in the US. You know what I mean? Now, I understand the US history in relation to black folks is different than anywhere else. You know what I mean? But the fact that you have black men like yourselves in the US who can see through the garbage shows me, you know what? At the end of the day, you know what? These guys preaching this crap. You know what I mean? They know they're in the wrong. Because you guys are basically looking at this nonsense and you're saying, what kind of rubbish is this? There's nothing wrong with traveling. Traveling is normal. Everybody else does it. Why is it it's all of a sudden it's a problem when black men start to do it, man? Nah, man, it's like at the end of the day, we just got to keep countering these narratives, man. Because like you say, there's a lot of people who believe it, but then there's thinking black men who up and coming thinking black men who basically they're still trying to find their way. And so this is why I write the articles. I write the articles for them. So they can basically they can get more of a secure footing. You know what I mean? Because I don't write articles for like all black men, because obviously we know that all black men, you know what I mean, there's a hell of a lot of black men who are lost and they're going to remain lost. Now, just those thinking black men who are going to find their way, man. That's who I write my articles for, man. And again, what I've stated before, I don't write articles. I don't reach out to black women because black women have made it clear where they stand. They don't like black men, though they won't come out as a collective and say it because they know that, but it's only black men who will deal with them en masse. I mean, obviously, I've just set up a new page now called Swole Mountain Graveyard, the Evidence Chamber. And I mean, I posted one link to there's an internet couple called Jamie and Nikki, interracial couple. They recently broke up. They split up. You know what I mean? And basically, that's going to be a page where thinking brothers can just come and post links to all these swole fails. You know what I mean? So, yeah, at the end of the day, the Crystalline Karazhan trying to talk about black men or black women, should I say, and how basically swirling's on the increase and black women are basically meeting all these white men and all this business and they're just getting on happily ever after. It's a crock of nonsense, man. This black man, like what you've been saying, MBD, this white man, he's throwing this black woman down left, right, and center. He's not interested. You're not interested in this black woman because this black woman has a negative value. She doesn't have any value. So this is why basically black women are just they're either basically getting thrown down to the curb by their white lord and savior, or they're just not getting picked up to begin with. And then on top of that, you got a situation where more black men are looking at this black woman, realizing that she's dysfunctional. And they too are saying, nah, I'm not interested in this. I can do better for myself. And they're walking off. These black women are feeling the heat. And what I predict, as I've been saying before, is these black women are going to start doing stuff. They're going to start going out of their way to get your attention now. I don't know. They might barge into you. They might basically push you. They might step on your foot. You know what I mean? They might just basically shout something random at you. They're going to get extremely desperate, man. This war is undefeated, man. I mean, and as more black men decide, you know what, I'm not having anything from this black woman. I want nothing to do with her. I'm not interested in her in the slightest. These black women are going to get more desperate. And especially when they start seeing you on the street with your non-black significant other, oh, they're going to try some skullduggery there as well. And I've written an article about that. I recently wrote an article where I showed a video where black women were just going on the street randomly attacking non-black females. You know what I mean? So that's something else that SYSBN brothers need to look out for. How these black witches are going to go out on the street and they're going to start trying to attack you because you're with a non-black female, especially if you're with a white woman. They're going to try and attack you, man. So, you know what I mean? You, at the end of the day, brothers need to be ready, man. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
I actually 100% agree with that. I do think that that might be part of the desperation. That might be one of the next phases, that you'll see more and more of these attacks on the free movement of black men. But this is nothing new. I mean, this goes all. This is a part of history. The blood of free movement and free thinking black men has been staining the ground of this country for a few hundred years. So it really isn't nothing new. And I just hope that brothers will be, won't be as delusional to ever think that as a black man, there is no place safe, you know what I'm saying, on this earth at this point, unless you're going to make it safe for yourself. So as free thinking black men, they discard the black redneck culture, as they discard the white supremacist ideologies and things like that, and they replace it with justice, and they replace it with a system that gives them a better position in it. There ain't gonna be no 100% safe space. And I always find that interesting that any black American man would think that there's ever gonna be a safe place on the planet until you're in the number one position. So you should always be aware of your surroundings, and you should be aware of how people perceive you. But what I find funny is that America being the belly of the beast of the anti-black male hatred, I think that black men that are born into this country and socialized in this country are the most prepared to deal with that enemy that's out there. So I think that when they travel, and what I've talked to the other brothers, is that they come to find out that it's so much more of a relief than it is being here in the United States. So I want to use that to kind of segue to this other false narrative that kind of builds on what you and what Baba and MBD were talking about in terms of like the sexual marketplace value. So one of the narratives that I saw looking through some comments the other day was that what I just said earlier, they go in there to trick. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about they're going there to trick, because my basic theory is that I think it's funny. So the domestic trick is the norm, right? Tricking on the domestic level is the norm. But if a man goes overseas to trick, now it's a problem. And the reason that kind of stood out to me, because in the news, you had like 2 reports on top tier black men in the status category. You had DeMarcus Cousins just got caught up in something where he got married to a woman, and then almost immediately his baby mother that he has I believe a teenage son with said that he couldn't send his son to his wedding, and DeMarcus Cousins got upset, and allegedly, according to TMZ and some other news outlets, she taped some audio of him cursing her out on the phone and making threats because she wouldn't allow the son to attend his wedding to the new broad. Typical entitled, empowered Western female behavior. So now he's finished. He's probably going to get cut by the Lakers by the end of next week if this thing goes viral, as typically whenever TMZ does something, it does tend to go viral. And then a couple days before that, you had Terrence Howard, who was married to an American Asian woman. And he's been through the gutter and the grinder of divorce before. Here he is. He's being forced to make like a $1.5 million payment to his ex-wife for spousal support. And I'm sitting there like, I've always believed that spousal support for anyone under the age of 65 is immoral and should be made illegal. I've always believed that. And these are the kind of legislation that free thinking, free moving men in this country should be fighting again. We should be fighting to overturn things like alimony. Someone has to explain to me why a man or a woman that is able-bodied and not disabled and under the age of 65 cannot work after a divorce. Those people don't owe you anything at that point. If you do a divorce, you got a prenup. You don't got a prenup, you get your settlement. What is this additional alimony thing that happens in America? So that's one of the pieces of legislation I think that brothers in this space should consider supporting, is the end of alimony, man. Because you got someone like a Terrence Howard, he has to pay his ex-wife $1.7 million. And I bring all that up to say this, because this is something that you don't hear from the International Dick Police Squad. America has the highest cost on pussy in the world. And we need to get into that. See what it is. I was peeping the comment. I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so the dick police for women is about them keeping the price of pussy high and keeping their hypergamous options as robust as possible. And so you get this narrative on it, right? So they want to keep their hypergamy in check, but they all want to keep, they also want to keep their non-sexual attention orbiter pool intact as well. But the part that no one talks about is that since we have an illegal prostitution system in the 49 of the states, you get to keep the price of the box at an ultimate high. And if you just, what's funny is that people don't even understand that all of these underworld and black market things are actually controlled by the US government as well. But no one thinks about that. Do you understand that they do world reports on the drug trade, where the CIA has a whole report where you can go online and look up the price of coke anywhere you land on the planet? They also do the same thing with child trafficking and prostitution. A lot of this shit is actually controlled by the US government and different forces. So they control even the illegal prostitution game. So they actually put out reports every year on the price of sex every year. And I'm looking through the report and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I see what's going on here. So in America, we have this divorce industry. When you look at all the G20 countries in the world, right? Guess what? There's only 2 G20 countries that are in the top 10 for divorce. United States of America being the #1 G20 country that's in there. They're ranked #3 for divorce in the world, right? And then you have Russia, who is ranked 9 or 10. So you have 2 G, but the United States has this small population of like 330 million, and they have a divorce of about 1 million per year. You get a 1 million divorce every year. But what threw me off was how big the industry of divorce is itself, right? The annual amount for the divorce industry in America is $50 billion, right? That and you can only understand that when you think about it from this perspective. So that comes out to about $50,000 per divorce. Now that doesn't mean that everyone gets divorced is going to pay $50,000, but when you take in consideration the lowest amount for a divorce to the highest, it comes out to $50,000 for every divorce in America. And why that stood out in my mind is I'm thinking like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because in America, the average income of a family of 4 is around $35,000 before taxes. So I'm thinking, I'm like, isn't it interesting that the divorce amount is higher than a family of 4's average income? Very similar to how to incarcerate a person is almost double what it is to send them to a university for a year. So I'm thinking to myself that if you want to know the values of a nation, if you want to know what's important to a nation, look at where they spend all their money. So we spend all this money on a divorce industry, on incarcerated individuals and things like that. And so I'm looking at this prostitution thing and I'm thinking, okay, this is how they keep the price of the box so high. Because you go to places like New York and the cost of a high-end escort. So let's say you're taking a 9 or a 10 in America, right? Because of the scarcity of attractive women, the value of a 9 or a 10 goes higher and higher and higher and higher in any nation. And so what you have in America is like, some of these women are charging $10,000, $5,000 for like a woman that's literally, I'm talking like a LA, Miami, New York 10. It can charge between $5,000 to $10,000 for one night with her. But then you go and look up other countries, and then you can understand why these people don't want to change it. Because if you get like a 25% of black men flying to the countries or whatnot, and these women are going to have to lower the price on the box, because America has the most expensive pussy on the planet in every way that you could think of, from dating, from marrying, to even paying for these women directly versus indirectly. So you got countries like Afghanistan where you can go over there and meet the women that is the 9s and the 10s, and you can get them for the cost of like a dinner. You can actually have that same woman who in the United States, that 10 that's in Afghanistan, you can have that 10 in Afghanistan for $30, right? This is a big threat to American women's monopoly on male sex drive, because they keep 80% of the male population in sexual repression, while the other 20% of males have, they burnt out from fucking these hoes, right? So then you look at a place like India. Think about that for a minute. We've seen how beautiful some of these Indian women are. They have dark features, they have long, luxurious hair, and many of them are very down to earth and educated. I've met quite a few East Indian women. You can go to India right now, and this same woman that here in the United States, because of the way that they have illegal prostitution, the way that they control men's movement, the way that they had a Me Too, a man in America is policed almost 24 hours a day in his behavior in this country right now. But if you go to India, that same woman, that if she stepped off a plane in Manhattan, that's a 9 or a 10 East Indian, she is automatically just got 10,000 followers on Instagram or something like that. You can have that woman for the cost of like a Happy Meal or one of those Popeyes chicken sandwiches that niggas is acting stupid over. You can actually have it for that price over there. See what I'm saying? And then you look at all over the world, and nothing compares to the rates to be with a woman, even if you want to pay directly for it, in the United States. But no one talks about that, how expensive that women are in America. You look at places like Japan, Tokyo, you can go be with a woman all night, 9 or a 10, the same woman that's living in Tokyo, that if she came to the United States, that 9 or a 10, like I just said, she got 25, 30,000 followers immediately. So she automatically, her hypergamy kicks in immediately as soon as she just hit LA or somewhere like that. The same woman that you could have had for the cost of $120 for a whole night. $120, that 9 or that 10. And then these women talk. So I'm just responding to this fact that they're bringing this up, but they're not telling the real reason that they have a problem with it. They don't care about prostitution, because in America, the argument can be made is that at least 80% of the population is some kind of prostitute. I don't know anyone that's more hypergamous than American women. And we could just look at the rates that they charge for pussy in America. No, that's true. I see women talking all day about getting the bag, getting the bag. How you getting the bag? By giving up that box. That's how you get in that bag. So this is what we have. So there's attempt to just keep the men in America in a total state of ignorance and a fear of traveling around the world. I mean, all around the world, you are in a hypergamous situation. And the dudes that care about that, their issue is that they cannot move around the way that you're moving around for whatever reason it is. It could be legal reasons, child support reasons. It could be the fact that they're afraid to move around, or they could just be in a relationship that's unfulfilling, and they're afraid to leave that unfulfilling relationship while they're seeing all these other guys. And remember, no one is more strange in like comparing themselves to the looks of another man than these American black feminine males, right? They love to compare themselves in their appearance to other men. It's really strange. So you got to think of it as like the player hating element to it. So like if you are one of those men that's in the category where you're limited in your options, you know, you're on arrears on child support, you got involved in some criminal stuff, or you just live in a bubble, and you see a dude that in your mind, because you know how these dudes like to look at you like, oh, is that dude pretty? Is he not pretty? That dude got a big chest. He got big arms. A lot of these American feminine men think like this, right? And so if he feels like his chest is bigger than yours, and he feels like his V-taper is tighter than yours or whatnot, and he has a prettier face, but yet he is in a situation of the homosexual where he's dating like the what is in America, like let's take the coastal would be like a 6, because a lot of these dudes, they might have like a lot of 5s and 6s, and they feel like, oh, you know, my body count is great, I got all these women. But then if they see a dude who they feel like, man, that dude V-taper is not as tight as mine, but he's talking about he's going over here to Rio, he's over here in Tokyo, he's in the DR, he's in Morocco, he's in Europe, and these different certain Belarus, whatever, all these countries. And then he's looking at you and he's like, yo, my 6-pack is tighter than his. I don't believe that you deserve to get these women, right? Because to him, it's like, I am supposed to get these women, and I don't want you having those women because they should only be with a man that looks like me. That's how a lot of these dudes think. So it's like a real deep, strange, you know what I'm saying, judgment of other men kind of thing. Like, that's why I say this whole cock watching topic is really uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I wanted to have the elegy and the funeral of this whole dick police narrative, because the shit is getting kind of uncomfortable and strange, if you ask me, man. But I'll get a mic back to the panel, man. I just had to throw that out there.
So let me give my quick take on that before I gotta go. With the deal, with a lot of these men who've worked out and they got their body in shape, you know, many of them did that in the penitentiary. Many of these men have felonies on their records. Many of these men have something. Maybe they owe a gang of child support, whatever it is, that will, you know, exclude them from being able to acquire a passport, and which will also restrict their travel. And so when they see you go into Brazil, or when they hear about their homeboy down the street, he's heading out to Japan. When they hear about the brothers came back from the military, something which this man didn't join, or he thought it was lame to join. He hears how he's having fun out there in the Ukraine. His war stories don't match up. A lot of these dudes that are so Afrocentric and pro-black that say a particular woman is God, when I ask them, hey, show me the type of chick, that you hustling with, since you are proclaiming this to be God. And they're fooling around with gorillas. They're fooling around with broads, seriously, with the man-faced broads. Like the dude that a co-worker of mine, the type of women that he's messing with are beasts out here. And it's like, yo, you find that attractive? And he's, and he thinks that is because, she got the super booty and, and she's got the hood features that he likes. That's what he wants. But he also desires and lusts after the light, bright, damn near white, international looking type of females, even though, when I show him some pictures, he thinks these women from different cultures, if they're from a white culture, I guess they have no soul or something like that. Anyways, it's bizarre. But a lot of these men, they can't compete on that level because they don't have the ability to be able to compete. The government has taken it away from them. That's why I told people, especially when I was a CO, you're the one who's really the Sambo. You're the one who's really the Uncle Tom, the brothers that are locked up, because the government is going to restrict what you're going to do in the future, what jobs you're going to have, where you can go, even what jobs you get, what loans you can get, things like that. That these men have burnt their future, running these streets. And so when they see brothers that are traveling, and because that's an accomplishment, going overseas is an accomplishment. When people climb Mount Everest, it's like, yo, it's a big rock. Why is people making a big deal out of it? Because it was a process. It's an accomplishment. So when your ass do get out of this country and travel overseas, you have accomplished something. They actually write that down as a list of things that you have achieved. And so when they see you do that, and they look at their own lives, even though they may be ripped and they got the muscle definition, the type of ladies that they can operate with don't match up to his muscle definition, except for in the face. Brothers, so I got to get up out of here. That's why SBM, it's great chilling with you guys. And we need to do this more often. So, get in touch with me. We can see if we can hook something up. Brothers.
Coming on, bro.
Hey, man. Nice to hear from you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you later, brothers.
Next time.
All right, man.
Yeah,
Cool.
man, I definitely agree with Mad Bus Driver. We have to, now that it's official, that's the brother. He was the one that's really behind that whole SYSBM movement. And he just made it clear that he's broken away completely from the general black YouTube, black manosphere. I've heard the same thing from Passport Bros. And, it's just like that old saying that one of my uncles used to tell me, where he would say that, because when I was in high school and I had certain homeboys or whatever, and how you sometimes fall out with your friends or whatever. And he would say that, that the jealous ones are always the troublesome ones because they're tormented by the fact that even if they are the moon, they still would be jealous of the stars. And then, I didn't always 100% understand what he was talking about when I was younger. But as I got older, I did kind of understand what he was trying to say, man, that some people are just never satisfied with their position. So even from your perspective, you might look at that person and say, that person's winning. They're in a great position, man. They should be good. They shouldn't even be worried about, certain things. But you got to wonder, how strong is your position in a certain context if you're worried about this other group of people or this other individual that's in this other lane and they way over there and don't got anything to do with you. So it's like they got the stars, but they want the moon. And it's just this thing about people, man, that they're just never satisfied. And I think that the brothers that are in the free movement and the free thinking, you guys just have to accept it and stop trying to cling on to these narratives, these Hotep communist kind of narratives and these sexual policing, sexual socialism narratives. Because I know a part of you does, you got that little voice in the back of your mind that Martin Luther King, he's talking to you. Malcolm X is talking to you. You know, Rosa Parks, you could hear her whispering in your ear. But I got to tell you guys, that was 3-4 generations ago, man. Those days are done. And for me, I don't wish ill will on anybody, even people that oppose me or oppose what I represent or whatever. I wish the best. And I just think that it's best that we just break off into our own little groups. Like Mad Bus Driver said, we should have more conversations like this. I want to really, make this the funeral of this whole sexual socialism conversation, as far as I'm concerned, at least, because this is like one of the most low level kind of conversation you could be having, is questioning the movements of free individuals in the United States of America. This is like some low tier, low vibration stuff, but the points do need to be dealt with. So for me, I don't really have too much more to say. I really enjoyed having everyone talk. I'll get a mic back to Baba and let him get some of his points out before we close it out. But I would just recommend to you, brothers, that you consider the arguments that have been had. I named some of the people that have done videos. There are at least 10 content creators that are moving in a free way, that have put out counterpoints to debunk these narratives so that they don't get into the wrong hands that will misuse it. It's not about no clickbait stuff. That shit is like, trash, just doing stuff just for entertainment and clickbaiting, not knowing the dangers of these airwaves. I would think that people would understand the danger of these airwaves, considering we've seen how it's been used against us as black men. You'd think that it would be a normal thing to know the dangers, considering how it's been used against you. But I guess when you get the mic, you don't have that level of responsibility to check yourself. Sometimes you just got to check yourself and ask yourself, what do I want my face and my name associated with? You know what I'm saying? And that's a question that every man got to ask himself. It's certain things that I would never attach my name to ever in my life. And so I think we have to be cautious of the kind of things we say on these airwaves. The free movement of black men is only going to grow. And I think it's actually, because of these conversations, it's actually going to grow exponentially. So whereas it might have been like a little slow trek, I think that because of the conversations that we're having and the false narratives that were put out and the counters to the narratives, typically the best thing to do in a situation is to ignore it, man. And by these cats and these forces that really hate free moving black men, they actually are just going to make the trek even faster, and they're going to make it grow even quicker now. Because what was happening is that a lot of the SYSBM bros, the passport bros, and others were getting bogged down in conversations about the quote unquote the community and trying to have that understanding. But now that these men have seen, like, yo, these people ain't trying to build anything. They're not trying to innovate. They're not trying to change anything. They're not talking about anything practical. And then the biggest hypocrisy is that 99% of the cats that's waving like this, the pro-black flag. I know you guys saw the picture of one of the Hotep founders, and the first thing they're gonna do, if they can get in your position, is they're gonna jump in your position. They're gonna jump on that plane. So the first thing they're gonna do when they get a chance to go date some woman from like some exotic location, that's the first thing that they're gonna do. So really, that's like that whole jealousy and that envy thing coming out. So just always keep that in mind when you listen to these, like what Baba calls the pyramid heads. Just remember that if they had the chance to move around freely, and if they got the chance to exercise like a sexual hypergamy, you can believe that they're going to exercise that sexual hypergamy. So I'll hand the mic over to Baba.
Yeah. I mean, this man, the jealousy and the envy of traveling brothers, it's just off the damn chain. Absolutely, off the damn chain, man. But yeah, as for thinking brothers, free thinking brothers, traveling brothers, man, you just got to carry on doing what you're doing, man. Because as MBD said before, it's just about getting brothers back onto the plantation, man. I mean, so you got the black female who, she knows that outside of black men, no one else will date her en masse. So she got to keep black men on the plantation. So she's got many of these options. So she got as many options as she can. But again, who basically does the black woman sleep with? She sleeps with 12 gauge Mike, Slim Sauce, Trap House Jim, Lil Cheesy from the block. That's who she sleeps with. And who does she want the resources from? She wants the resources from Blue Collar Trevor, White Collar Steven. I mean, so this is what I'm saying. Like with this black female, she has an order in her black community. Again, the black community is black women. So you have the what do you call it? You have the chunky bruh, and you have the what do you call it? And the trap house gym type individuals. That's who she basically gets her sexual pleasure from. But then you have the blue collar Trevor type individuals. That's who she expects to peak bringing in the money that basically she's taking and she's thrown into the hands of other communities, namely East Asian communities. So this is another reason why I say, you know what, that you just need to walk away from the black community, because at the end of the day, these black women are putting their money into other communities, man. So how are you supposed to build? They keep telling you to build. Well, what are they going to do? As soon as you build something, they're going to take the money, take the resources, and put it in someone else's hands. That's what I'm saying, man. This black woman is, again, this black woman is selfish. You know what I mean? She has no kind of understanding about long-term objectives, long-term agendas. Got no understanding about building. She got no interest in building whatsoever. Again, just like these Hotep, Pyramid Head, pro-black, black one, whatever you want to call them, they're the same. They got no interest in building whatsoever, man. You know what I mean? Just like MBD said, they're just looking for some booty. You know what I mean? These guys on here. You know what I mean? So yeah, at the end of the day, we just got to continue moving forward. Don't fall for the okie doke. And yeah, I agree with you, King Sigma, man. All this talk about these guys are dick monitoring all this business, man. I mean, this has been happening for a while, but now it's really getting ridiculous now, where they're just really pulling out the stops and just like all kinds of slander and just pulling all kinds of false accusations out the hat. This is really getting ridiculous now, where they're really trying to. I mean, this is like some communist. This is like communism, Russia, or like Nazi Germany. You know what I mean? Let me see your papers, please. Type flex. That's how they're carrying on. But at the end of the day, I completely agree with you. Thinking black men are going to jump on board. It's just going to grow exponentially. The black witch is going to be thrown upon the mountain of rejection. I mean, she's just going to continue digging further and further into degradation. I mean, because that's all she knows. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, with black women now, I think it's, to be honest, so-called what do you call it, so-called good black women. I mean, in black female society now, I think you're looking at less than 4%, way less than 4%, and even then I think that's a generous figure. You know what I mean? Yeah, because you've got, not only have you got the black women who engage in dysfunction, but you got the black women who co-sign them, and then you've got the black women who are silent as well, silent on these issues. So I mean, you're talking less than 4% of so-called decent black women, man. I mean, again, it's like the needle in the haystack situation. It's just not worth it. No, just go and find yourself a different woman. I mean, with me now, I'm a man who still likes melanin in my female. So basically, I went and got a woman who's still got melanin. She's half black, half Indian. That's good enough for me. I mean, so I got the melanin there, so I'm all right. You know what I mean? So what do you call it? And it made me laugh because when I was on a while back, when I was on Nyla Says' panel, and then you got a load of black females on there trying to say, yeah, I hope you're happy with you and your white woman. And when I broke down to them the fact that my woman's not white, yeah, they had nothing to say. They were silent. You know what I mean? So again, this is something else we've talked about. The fact that they, like, these are pro-blacks, and these other individuals who are against black men traveling, against black men dating out, they always seem to think that when a black man dates out, his immediate preference is a white woman. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I don't have a problem with white women. I would date a white woman, but that's not my immediate preference. My immediate preference is something melanated like myself. So if it has to be like, I don't know, has to be an Indian chick, Sri Lankan chick, you know what I mean? A mixed race chick, you know what I mean? Something where there's some melanin in there. That's my immediate preference. Latina, you know what I mean? In a mixed mulatto. I mean, that's good enough for me. I mean, but again, they don't see that. They just see
Baba,
everything.
Baba, you make a good point right there, because that's something that I'm always honing in on. But I've come to understand that, you know, even if you give a person all the facts, you know, they will just create whatever narrative they want. Because how do we go about just skipping over the whole fact that 97% of the black population in the world is outside American borders? Like, how the hell do we just skip over the whole fact that only 3% of the black population in the world resides in the United States? How do these people skip over that fact that most black men have the same feelings that Baba has? He wants a woman with melanin in their skin, but he wants a woman that also comes with the traits of cooperation, femininity, and the admiration. And I kind of talk about that fact. What man really wants to be in a long-term relationship with a woman that he doesn't believe admires him, right? And that is going to be cooperative and that's going to de-stress him. She's supposed to supplement your leadership and your hard work. That's what a woman's role has always been, in my opinion. So most of these dudes, they love heavily melanated women, but they want those other traits as well. See, what it is here in the United States, they want you to have that certain kind of woman that they assign to you, and I mean that word assigned to you without your choice. But you got to accept her no matter how masculine she is, no matter how much she weighs, no matter how much of a bitch that she is. You have to accept her no matter how much debt she got, how many diseases she got, how many kids that she's towing along, how fucked up her family is. All these things you still supposed to accept her because the white male has assigned her to you. And that's the game that these pyramid heads like to play. They act like they're the ones that are addicted. No. They're getting their orders straight from white men, white racist men specifically. They're getting their orders directly from white racist men, while the woman that you're chasing that is wearing the little head wrap and all that, the female pyramid head, she is banging out all these non-white dudes every day. The only reason that she's caping with you is because her prospects are so limited, and she understands that. So she got her hand on over here in the white mating market, trying so hard to catch a fish, but then she got her hand and the help of a matriarchal drone hand on your throat, keeping you over here in this dating market so that you can like help her until she gets where she's trying to get to, as far as like, the failing to swirl with the bottom shelf brads. So that's what I think they always ignore. They never talk about the fact that 97% of the black population is outside of the United States. And these women that complain about the American black man, they ain't going to these black patriarchal countries looking for the black men over there. Why ain't they flying out to all these African countries to get them the so-called black men that they love, that is not the same as the one here in America that they claim, that the feminine one that they raised themselves? No, they're going out looking at all these other places and failing because they just want to keep you stranded here and stuck in a place that doesn't care about your life, doesn't care about your future and things like that. But most black men, even with all of that hatred, still want a black woman, a heavily melanated woman, or at least a half-bred type of woman. That's what I've heard from men in this space, and I know it to be true because of the countries that they've traveled to, mostly have melanated women. But they don't never want to talk about that. So that's for me. That's why I say this is an elegy for me. I felt that this whole narrative has been buried. But you got any closing thoughts, Bobby, before we get up out of here?
Just basically, we just got to keep pushing on. We just got to keep expanding. We just got to ignore the hate, because that's literally what it is hate. Get your passports, travel around the world. Just ignore this foolishness about basically how we're traveling. We're trying to get accepted by whites, and we're traveling we're incels and all this crap, this garbage. Just keep doing what you're doing. At the end of the day, like we said before, there are certain black men who are afraid to travel. They're afraid to step outside of their own home country. But that shouldn't be you. You got that passport. You basically, you're not afraid to travel. You're not afraid to get the passport. Get the passport, man. Travel out around the world. See new places. Again, it's like what you talked about the other day about the benefits of traveling. You went through a range of benefits of traveling, man. Again, it's not just about women. There are other aspects to traveling. Again, the biggest one is what you mentioned before, King Sigma, is the de-stressing, the relaxation aspect. That's the biggest aspect to traveling, man. As soon as you get off the plane, you're in a different country, you just chilled out, relax. You don't have to worry about the rat race, the corporate. You don't have to worry about that, man.
And so this is your sex drive. One of the other benefits, we had Dr. Phoenix in here. He's been on my panels before. He's a medical school student. You guys salute that man, Dr. Phoenix. He'll be starting another semester. If he hasn't already started, he'll definitely be starting after Labor Day. He's in medical school, and I'm quite sure that having these conversations helps him to think about papers that he might be wanting to write on the sexual things that are going on with Black Americans. But, one of the things they don't talk about is the fact that you can go to WebMD right now. Traveling actually increases your sex drive naturally, because one of the reasons that the American male sex drive is so depressed is due to stress. But when you tell them all these things, it just goes. They become so accustomed to being beasts of burdens for a system that uses you as a utility drone that they accept it. You can break any living creature can be broken physically or psychologically if you apply the right mechanisms. And I think that what has happened is that a lot of these black beasts of burden have been so broken by the matriarchy and the white dominant society that they don't want to change the status quo. They're just ready to die. They're going to enjoy their few days on this earth, and when their time comes to leave, they're not trying to improve their condition or anything like that. So I just think that's something to think about. The fact that, traveling, one of the unstated benefits is that they notice that it increases your testosterone naturally without applying anything else. They just study people that travel, their testosterone levels go up. And the people don't understand that one of the biggest cause of disease in the United States right now is stress.
It's stress, man. That stress is big. Yep.
I mean, it's the root of so many different mental illnesses and physical ailments. But yet, again, it's one of those areas that people want to ignore. But you know what? Now that I brought that up, I'm going to have Dr. Phoenix on in the future for a panel on stress and how stress weighs down heavily on the head of the black male and how that leads to other destructive behaviors. So that's my last statement on it. You got final words, Baba?
That's it, man. Just, you know what I mean? You want to
give us
go ahead, bro.
What's your schedule? Because I know you said you got a whole bunch of panels. Tell everyone where they can see you for the next few days while you're still talking about this.
Yeah, what's happening? Right, tomorrow I'm on the Obsidian show, which is gonna be at 9 o'clock Eastern time, which would be 100 hours or 2 o'clock GMT in the afternoon. And then in the evening, at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time again, or Eastern EDT, which is going to be like 2:30 in the morning GMT. I'm going to be on TPOT's panel as well, Profit of Thought, to discuss my article I released recently about how black women abuse, brutalize, traumatize, and sexualize black children. I'm going to be on there discussing that. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be on GW3's Extreme. GW3 Extremes, he's got a live stream that's going to be 12 o'clock EDT, which is going to be 5 o'clock GMT in the afternoon. So, I mean, I got a pretty packed out week, man. But to be honest, the was it TPOT? His one's going to be a killer because that's like in the morning and I'm normally sleeping at that time. But so I just have to get a nap in the afternoon, you get me? So I should be all right. But yeah, pretty packed out week, man. You know what I mean? Apart from that, I'll be releasing an article on Friday. You know what I mean? What do you call it? As per usual, you release articles Monday and Friday, and then you got open mic Wednesday on Wednesday. But yeah, that's me, bro.
Man, I appreciate that, Baba, man. You guys make sure that you go support Baba over at slayingevil.com and go check him out on the other panels this week. I'm sure that he'll put the final nail in the coffin on this conversation. But as we know, the battle for black malehood, it's going to be an ongoing thing for all our days on this earth. So they'll move from one narrative to a whole nother conversation. But you, as a free thinking and free moving black man, it's time for you to just separate yourself from these people. And in the words of Mr. Neely Fuller, never ever surround yourself with unconstructive, non-constructive people with non-constructive behavior. Separate yourself. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone for coming out and supporting us. And, I really appreciate your time. These conversations need to be had. And I've always told you guys that I try to do this like 1 or 3 times a month, a conversation, but we'll see when the next time. I'll definitely be doing something later in September. But until then, you guys stay up, keep improving yourself, keep educating yourself, and just stay abreast what's going on in 2019. But more than anything, man, get your money real tight right now because this economy is not looking that great. And with that, peace out to everyone. Until next time, talk to you later.
Peace out, bro.
Peace out, Bobby.